You have felt it before, haven't you? That strange pull toward someone whose eyes seem to echo a memory you can't quite place. It feels like recognition without history, as if a part of you rises to greet them before your mind can understand why. There is warmth and trembling, a familiarity older than your name. You tell yourself it is coincidence, yet your heart whispers otherwise. Every time it happens, you feel the same quiet awe, as if destiny has brushed past you in human form. You meet, you speak, and something ancient awakens beneath the surface of ordinary life. Their gestures, their silence, the tone of their laughter, it all feels rehearsed by souls rather than bodies. You wonder how many times this dance has been repeated, how many lifetimes have folded themselves into this single glance. The rational mind calls it projection, but your dreams seem to remember. They tell stories your waking mind refuses to hold. In the silence between breaths, you sense a pattern forming. Faces change, voices shift, yet the essence remains the same. The lesson is familiar, though the setting always differs. Sometimes it comes wrapped in love, other times in loss, but always with the same haunting undertone. You have been here before. You have spoken these words. You have loved this soul across veils of time. And still you ask yourself why. Why does life keep leading you to the same spirit in new disguises? Why do the same emotions return, with faces that vanish as soon as you learn their name? Perhaps it is not they who return, but you who are still circling in unfinished truth. Perhaps the meeting is not external at all, but an echo of the same longing within you, trying to complete its journey home. Each encounter leaves a trace, a shimmering thread that ties you to something larger than the story you tell yourself. You start to realize that the soul's memory is not bound by flesh, and that time itself may be the illusion that keeps you believing in separation. Somewhere deep inside, you already know that recognition is the signpost of evolution. You keep meeting the same soul in different bodies, because love refuses to forget itself. And so the question remains, softly pulsing beneath your thoughts. What is this force that keeps drawing you back to the same eyes, the same lesson, the same mirror? What if the purpose of these encounters is not to find another, but to remember who you are beneath every face you meet? The answer waits quietly, like a dream you have already dreamt. It only needs you to listen. When Jung spoke of the psyche, he saw it as a vast terrain of repeating symbols, each soul walking through its own labyrinth toward the center. He knew that what we call love or fate is often the language of the unconscious speaking through another's face. When you meet someone and feel that inexplicable pull, it is not just attraction, it is recognition. The deeper self sees in them an aspect of its own unfinished work. Through them, your soul tries once again to remember what it has forgotten. The psyche does not speak in logic, it speaks in patterns. It sends you mirrors dressed as lovers, rivals, and friends. It moves you through repetition until you learn to see the archetype behind the form. Every soul that crosses your path is part of a larger story unfolding through you. You may think you are meeting new people, but in truth, you are meeting the same energies, the same lessons, until they are integrated and made whole. The unconscious repeats what the conscious mind refuses to understand. Sometimes you find yourself drawn to the same kind of person again and again. The face changes, the city changes, the time changes, but the feeling is identical. It is as if life insists on rehearsing the same play, each act slightly altered, until you realize you are not meant to change the cast, but the consciousness with which you perform. Jung would call this the process of individuation, where the outer world becomes a reflection of the inner journey. Every relationship is a dialogue between the self and its own depths. Love, as the soul understands it, is not bound by circumstance. It moves through lifetimes, carrying the essence of what is yet to be completed. The one you meet today may carry the echo of a bond older than history. Their presence awakens not just emotion but memory. You may not recall the details, but the body knows, the heart knows. Somewhere beneath thought, your being remembers the rhythm of their energy, the harmony you once shared, the wound you never healed. This is why recognition feels both beautiful and terrifying. Each encounter invites you deeper into your own mystery. The soul uses others as instruments of remembrance, playing the same melody until you learn to listen differently. Sometimes the song is gentle, other times it burns through you like fire, reducing illusions to ash. The faces that come and go are not accidents, they are symbols. They appear when the psyche is ready to move another step toward wholeness. To meet the same soul in a different body is to meet the unlearned part of yourself. And as you begin to see this, something softens inside you. You realize that no meeting is random, no separation meaningless. Every bond, whether fleeting or lifelong, belongs to the same river of becoming. You have never truly lost anyone, for the essence of every soul you have ever loved lives within you still. They return, not to haunt you, but to guide you toward what you have always been seeking, yourself. It begins with a feeling, subtle yet undeniable, a quiet resonance beneath the surface of ordinary life. You see a stranger and something in you stirs, as if the soul itself is leaning forward to remember. The air changes, your heartbeat slows, and the moment stretches, luminous and charged. The world fades to silence, leaving only that recognition. It is not attraction in its usual form, but a remembrance that pulls from deeper waters. You do not choose it, it chooses you. This is how the unconscious speaks, not through words, but through symbols that wear human faces. Each person you meet carries a fragment of your own forgotten self. Their eyes become mirrors, through which you glimpse both your light and your shadow. You think it is them you are seeing, but it is your own depths that have surfaced for a moment to be seen. The encounter is never random. It is the psyche arranging its stage, dressing your lessons in living flesh. Jung called this process projection, but it is more sacred than that word suggests. It is as if the soul uses human encounters as a form of alchemy. Every relationship becomes a vessel in which consciousness is refined, purified by reflection and fire. Through the mirror of another, the unconscious transforms into awareness. And yet, this process is not gentle. It burns. It dissolves illusions. It shows you where you are still blind to yourself. Imagine standing before a river that reflects your image, but its surface trembles with every ripple. The reflection distorts, changes, moves. You reach toward it, believing it to be someone else, but your hand meets only water. Still, the water remembers your touch. The river is the passage of lives, and the reflection is the face of every soul you have ever loved or wounded. Through this mirror, you learn to see that nothing has ever truly been separate. The pattern repeats because the soul insists on completion. Until the lesson becomes love, the reflection will continue to appear. You will meet the same essence in countless forms, again and again, until your seeing becomes clear. When it does, you no longer grasp at the reflection. You stand still and let the river flow. What you once called destiny now becomes understanding. You realize the other was never a stranger, only a forgotten part of your own becoming. There comes a point when the reflection stops flattering you and begins to challenge you. The one who once felt like home suddenly feels like a storm. Their words cut deeper than they should. Their presence stirs emotions you thought were buried long ago. You feel anger, jealousy, despair. You tell yourself it is about them, but the truth is, they have touched a wound that never healed. They have become the mirror through which the unconscious demands to be seen. The soul has no interest in comfort, only in wholeness. It will summon the exact person capable of disturbing your stillness, because only through that disturbance can something new emerge. This is the realm of the shadow, where all that you have rejected about yourself waits patiently to be integrated. When you feel betrayed, abandoned, unseen, it is the soul reminding you of the places where you have abandoned yourself. The other only plays the role your inner script assigns. In this way, love becomes initiation. The more intense the emotion, the more sacred the work. Passion and pain are the twin flames that burn away false identities. What you call heartbreak is often the breaking of an illusion, the collapse of a projection that can no longer hold. The person you loved was never just a person, but a vessel for something larger, a symbol of your own inner transformation. They appear, ignite, and vanish, leaving you raw but more awake. Picture a forest at night, dense and silent, where every path seems to lead deeper into darkness. The one you met becomes your lantern, illuminating only a few steps ahead. You follow, not realizing the light they hold is your own soul shining back at you. When they disappear, the forest feels unbearable, yet in that darkness your true vision begins. You start to see that what you thought was loss is actually initiation into yourself. And when you finally stop chasing the light outside, something astonishing happens. The forest begins to glow from within. You realize that every encounter was guiding you to this moment of inner illumination. The same soul you kept meeting in different bodies was never outside you. It was the same consciousness calling from the depths, asking you to wake up. The one you sought has always been the one who was seeking. As the light within begins to stir, you notice that the patterns of your life start to reveal a kind of secret architecture. The people who hurt you, the ones who healed you, the ones who came and left too soon, all form a constellation that points toward something precise. Nothing was random, though it often felt cruel. Every bond, every loss, every silence was the psyche sculpting you into awareness. You were never meant to stay asleep among familiar faces. You were meant to awaken through them. This realization does not arrive gently. It comes with tears, with nights of confusion, with the ache of recognizing how many times you mistook attachment for love. But as the veil thins, you begin to see the symmetry. The same lessons, the same emotional textures, repeating until they transform into wisdom. The universe, in its strange mercy, never punishes, it educates. It sends back the same lesson until it becomes light. When it finally does, you feel gratitude where once there was resentment. In Jung's language, this is the meeting of the ego and the self, the moment when your human story aligns with a deeper cosmic rhythm. The encounters that once seemed chaotic now reveal themselves as precise, almost mathematical. Each person was a note in the same symphony, a vibration guiding you toward harmony. The pain, the love, the longing, all were expressions of the same melody, the song of your becoming. Through them, you were tuning your own soul. Imagine a river again, this time wider, calmer, shimmering under the moon. The faces that once seemed separate now appear like reflections, moving in the same current. You realize you have never met anyone new, only old souls playing new roles. The flow of life carries them forward, but the water remembers. Every drop that touches you has been here before. It knows your name, it knows your wounds, and it carries both your joy and your sorrow toward the same sea. This understanding softens the heart. You stop clinging to outcomes, stop trying to hold on to what was never meant to stay. You begin to see that love's true nature is freedom, and that the soul's purpose is not possession, but evolution. The same soul you keep meeting in different bodies is not a punishment, but a promise. a promise that everything unfinished will one day find completion, not through another, but through the awakening of your own heart. There are moments when you feel as though the universe itself is conspiring to repeat what you thought you had already transcended. The same emotions rise again, the same endings unfold, and you wonder if you have learned nothing at all. But repetition is not regression, it is refinement. The psyche circles its lessons like the moon orbiting the earth, returning again and again to illuminate what was once hidden in shadow. The pattern persists until your vision becomes clear enough to see through it. Every cycle deepens your understanding. You start to recognize the signs earlier, the subtle shifts in energy, the déjà vu of emotion that tells you an old story is resurfacing. This time, however, something is different. You are no longer trapped within the pattern, you are observing it. Awareness becomes your liberation. The moment you stop identifying with the recurring pain, it begins to dissolve. You realize that the lesson was never about the other person, it was about your own awakening. In the mirror of love, you see the archetypes playing through both of you. The lover and the beloved, the savior and the betrayer, the parent and the child. Each role emerges to reveal the hidden forces shaping your life. What you call chemistry is often the magnetic pull of unconscious material seeking integration. The attraction is the psyche's way of bringing opposites into union. What appears as romance is actually the alchemy of the soul, transforming lead into gold. Picture a fire burning in the center of a dark room. Every time you meet someone, a spark from that fire leaps outward and takes form, illuminating a forgotten corner of your being. Sometimes it warms you, sometimes it scorches you, but it always reveals more of who you are. As you gather these sparks, the light within grows steadier. What once burned as desire now glows as understanding. The heat becomes illumination, the pain becomes grace. Eventually, you begin to bless the repetition. You see that each return was an act of mercy, each encounter, another opportunity to awaken from forgetfulness. The same soul appearing in different forms was not haunting you, it was guiding you. It was the self speaking through time, reminding you that love is not linear. It moves in spirals, always bringing you closer to the center. And at that center, you begin to realize there was never more than one soul at all. Once you have seen the pattern, life begins to feel lighter. The need to control dissolves, and you start moving with a quiet trust. The world becomes a mirror of your inner state, and every encounter reveals exactly what your soul needs at that moment. When you meet someone new, you no longer rush to define who they are to you. You listen instead to the energy between you, to the subtle remembrance that hums beneath the surface. Each meeting feels sacred, as if the universe is whispering. Watch closely, there is meaning here. In this stage, you begin to perceive others not as characters in your story, but as reflections of your own evolution. The soul no longer demands possession, it seeks resonance. You stop asking, will they stay? And begin to ask, what truth are they showing me now? Every bond becomes a teacher, every parting a purification. Love stops being about holding and starts being about seeing. It becomes less about fusion and more about recognition, the clear awareness that every connection is a meeting of mirrors. Jung understood this as the dance between the conscious and the unconscious, the eternal dialogue that brings the fragments of the self into unity. You feel this dance moving through you now, guiding you toward a quieter kind of love, one that does not need to be returned to feel complete. This love sees without grasping, gives without demanding, and honors without fear. It is love without story, love that simply is. Through it, you begin to feel what the mystics meant when they spoke of union with the divine. Imagine a temple built not of stone but of silence. Within it burns the same flame that has guided you through lifetimes. Each soul you have met has placed a spark upon that altar. The faces blur, but the light remains. You kneel before it, realizing that all those encounters, all those heartbreaks, were sacred offerings to this one eternal fire. It has always been your task to tend it, to keep it alive through the practice of awareness and compassion. When you rise from that inner temple, the world feels different. The faces you meet are no longer strangers. They are fragments of your own divinity returning home. The soul you have chased through centuries no longer runs ahead of you. It walks beside you now, calm and luminous, because it was never someone else at all. It was the eternal presence within you, finally recognized and finally at peace. And then comes the quiet after the storm, the space where the search loses its urgency. You find yourself breathing more deeply, as if the air itself carries understanding. There is no longer a need to reach for what has already been found. The soul, once restless and longing, begins to rest within its own rhythm. You no longer ask why certain people appeared or why others left. You sense that every movement, every return, every silence was necessary. The tapestry could not have been woven without each thread. From this stillness, a new kind of perception arises. You begin to see beyond faces, beyond stories, beyond the illusion of time. You sense the golden thread that links every encounter, every lifetime. It runs through you, and through all beings, shimmering like light beneath water. What you once called coincidence now feels like choreography. Every meeting was a step in a sacred dance, leading you closer to the realization that separation was only ever a dream. Jung might have called this moment the union of opposites, when the divided parts of the psyche are reconciled. You feel this alchemy within your own heart, the merging of all you have loved and feared. It is as if the inner masculine and feminine, the seeker and the sought, the lover and the beloved, all dissolve into one presence. The longing to find the other transforms into the joy of being whole. You understand that love was never meant to be possessed. It was meant to be realized. Picture the dawn, after a long night, the horizon trembling with light. You feel the same within you. Every soul that once mirrored your pain now becomes a reflection of your peace. Even those who hurt you begin to shine differently in memory, their faces softened by forgiveness. You realize that they too were searching for the same wholeness, the same light. The boundaries that once defined you fade, and what remains is tenderness for all that lives. Now you walk through the world with new eyes. Each glance, each word, each encounter feels like a continuation of a single story that never truly began and will never truly end. You keep meeting the same soul in different bodies because there is only one soul exploring itself through infinite forms. And as this truth settles in your heart, you understand what the journey was always trying to show you. There was never another. There was only the mirror of God, and you were looking into it all along. There is a moment when all the stories begin to dissolve into silence. The names fade, the faces blur, and what remains is the pulse of something eternal moving through everything you have ever loved. You realize that you were never chasing anyone. You were following the echo of your own divinity. Every encounter, every heartbreak, every joy was the soul speaking to itself through the language of form. The repetition, the pain, the longing were only the rhythm of awakening, the sound of the divine remembering its name. Now the mirrors no longer confuse you. You see through them gently, with compassion rather than attachment. The eyes that once captivated you now reflect something deeper, your own wholeness. You are not searching for completion anymore, because you can feel it breathing through you. The love that once reached outward now radiates from within, soft and unwavering. It has no target, no object, no need. It simply flows, like a river returning to the sea, effortless and eternal. The psyche, once fragmented by desire and fear, becomes a single field of awareness. You recognize that every soul you have met was a facet of the same crystal, reflecting the same light from a different angle. When you finally see the light itself, you can love every reflection equally. There is no hierarchy of importance, no comparison, no loss. The one you loved most, the one who hurt you most, the one you barely noticed, all dissolve into the same ocean of being. In that ocean, nothing is missing. It feels like coming home. The forest that once frightened you now breathes with gentleness. The river that once carried your tears now shimmers with laughter. The fire that once burned you now warms your hands. You see that nothing was ever against you. Every element, every lesson, every soul was conspiring to awaken you to this quiet radiance. The universe was never testing you. It was teaching you how to remember that you were never separate from its heart. And so, you sit in stillness, listening to the world breathing through you. You sense the souls you have met still moving through the great current of existence, each continuing their own spiral of remembrance. You do not cling, you do not resist. You simply bless them as they pass, knowing that the bond between you is eternal. You have become the witness, the fire, the river, the temple, the dreamer awakened within the dream. In that recognition, you are both everything and nothing, and peace has found you at last. Now the journey narrows into silence. You feel the world breathing through you, each inhale filled with everything you have ever loved, each exhale releasing what you no longer need to hold. You no longer chase meaning, you become it. The same soul you have met in countless forms now rests quietly within your chest, no longer fragmented, no longer searching. It watches through your eyes, speaks through your voice, and moves through your hands. There is no boundary between you and it, no separation between the observer and the observed. You begin to sense the gentle rhythm beneath all things. The wind that touches your face feels like an old friend. The stars above seem to recognize you. Even strangers carry an echo of familiarity. You realize that the universe has always been whispering the same message through every form it wears. You are not alone, because you are part of the one soul that dreams itself into being. Every person you have loved was that soul reaching out to remind you. Every loss was that same love calling you back to center. What once felt like karma now feels like grace. What once seemed like repetition now reveals itself as refinement. The cycles that once exhausted you now feel like breathing, an expansion and contraction of divine memory. You understand that the purpose was never to escape the pattern, but to see through it. When you see through it, the pattern becomes art. Every relationship becomes sacred geometry. Every emotion a brushstroke painting your soul's evolution across time. You sit in quiet gratitude for everything that has ever been. The faces return in memory, not to haunt, but to bless. You feel their warmth, their laughter, their sorrow. You thank them for their part in your awakening. Even the painful ones have softened now, their edges blurred by compassion. You realize that forgiveness is not an act, but a recognition. Nothing needs to be forgiven when you see that all things were movements of the same love learning to see itself. And so the silence deepens. You rest inside it like a seed within the soil, content to be, without asking for more. The one soul continues to move through time, meeting itself in endless forms, learning to remember its own reflection. You are part of that remembering now. You are both the dream and the dreamer, both the river and the sea. As the final breath settles, you feel it clearly, the truth that was always waiting beneath every meeting. You have never been separate, and love has never once forgotten your name.